You know what, man? I think it's just really fascinating, man, when I come across people who kind of specialize in a specific thing, specific, not even specific sound, but like in your case, I was looking at your hardware. Your hardware of choice rather is the SP404, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, recently SP555, but it's more or less the same thing.
Got you, got you. So I've never used that before. I use a lot of Koala Sampler, which I know a lot of people
Ooh,
compare
man,
the
that's a
two,
good
like
one.
in terms of, oh, it's amazing, bro. I
Yeah, it's
love music.
amazing.
Actually, bro, I just had a conversation with someone like yourself who's like in this a similar lane as you, except in the koala lane, in the sense of, you look on his page and you see that this person sort of mastered, for lack of a better word, this particular gear, or in his case, this particular app. So I want to definitely unpack that a little bit. But before we even kind of dive in, I'd love for you to like introduce yourself, to start off, and introduce yourself to the audience.
All right, so my name's Genie. I go by Genie Makes Hip Hop on Instagram because that's where I usually upload my content. But it's really just Genie. I don't know about the making hip hop anymore because that's not really what I release on platforms anymore. Well, I guess I still will, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
if you uh, as an artist, you gotta grow sometimes. You gotta get
Mm-hmm.
out of that lane a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that being said, I do make hip hop, and I have lots of I have a pretty good track record of a bunch of beats. Usually just on Instagram. Sometimes if I feel like it, and I have a pretty cohesive project, I'll put it on Spotify. Yeah, the major music platforms, the
Mm-hmm.
works.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, not really. Um, Kind of just doing my own thing and making music. Doesn't have to be hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Whatever sounds good, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But I feel like I have a sound that I'm pretty happy with, so I stick to that.
Bro, like I said, I was just literally watching some of your stuff, and you could see just, I mean, it sounds amazing, looks amazing, and you can tell that and I'm sure you're still maybe, still learning as
Yeah,
well, but
thank
you've
you very
like sort
much.
of, you have a really, really great grasp on how to use your piece of equipment. And you said the other one, I mentioned the 404, the other one is called the 5.
555. It's basically just like right. The 404 has 12 pads. The 555 has 16. That's really the only difference.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, just a bigger
Yeah, I
piece
want
of
to talk
equipment.
about that a little bit. I know about the equipment. I haven't ever used one myself, but I know how popular and beloved it
Oh
is.
yeah, definitely.
And I
They
know,
just they just released a Mark II, I think.
yes, the Mark II,
Yeah.
yeah. So for people who don't know about it, share a little bit about like, what makes that your hardware of choice, and like why you enjoy using it so much.
Okay, so for the SP404, it's always been like one of the legendary like samplers
Mm,
of like hip hop. Well, hip hop in particular, but lots of indie acts use it too for their sampled material. But
mm-hmm.
what's special about the 404 is that the way it handles. Well, okay, let's not get into the technical aspect first. Let me uh let me bring you back a little bit to the year 2004
Mm-hmm.
or 2005. I'm actually not sure. With the release of Mad Villain, and Mad Villain, it's really what put the sampler to the map. But it's
Mm,
the SP303. There's little difference on how to make beats, but the 404 is really the most accessible.
mm-hmm.
Accessible, but right now it's super expensive. But
Mm-hmm.
it's it has a signature sound that not a lot of other equipment can do because of the way it handles compression. And the way
Mm,
it handles compression is like when the kick is loud, everything ducks down. It's basically sidechain, and
mm-hmm.
the way it sounds, the way it processes low end, you are not gonna get any type of low end from any other machine, but from the SP404. You could get audio from from anywhere. You could just get it from straight from YouTube, run it to the
Sure, sure.
SP404, put it back, and you're gonna hear the difference in the bass.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
it's really apparent. Like it's so clear, like what the difference is when you run music into the 404. And that's what I love about it. You can't get
That's so
you
cool.
can't get the rawness of the 404 from any other. You can't get that type of rawness
Right.
in a machine.
That's really cool. See, that's something I didn't. I personally, from being someone who hasn't used it before, didn't really realize. So there's a signature sound to it. That's maybe one of the maybe several things that people really like about it. And then
Yeah,
in terms
definitely.
of like your workflow, right? When you are, say, if after our conversation, say if you're planning on making something new, making some new music, do you have like a when you power it up, is there like a sort of like samples and sounds that you yourself put onto this to kind of start as like a starting point, or are there sounds that are already built into this already if someone's purchasing it brand new, or do you have to like put all your own stuff into it?
Well, when I got mine, because I just got mine off of eBay, so
Hmm.
I'm not sure if there are actually factory samples on it. I
Okay.
think there are, but I never really like tried sourcing it. So I
Okay.
always just got my own samples and put it in the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And records, drum breaks, the works, things
Yep.
that you can use
Yeah.
to make a beat. And yeah, it's just that's it. You make a beat out
That's
of.
cool.
I've always made beats with my own sounds, or
Yeah.
sounds that I've stole because it's a sampler.
Sure. Sure. At heart, it is a sampler at the end
Yeah,
of at the end of the day,
yeah.
right? Do you have, if I know you've made a lot of different stuff, like say for example, if you're one of your icons, someone who's like a huge musical influence to you, hits you up and is like, "Yo," and I'm sure this, maybe this has happened. I mean, you have a really dope following, and people, really love the stuff that you're doing, which makes a lot of sense because what you're doing is really, really,
Yeah.
just great quality.
Very happy
Um,
to have my audience. Definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's and we'll even talk about that in a second. I'll dive back into that. But I want to know if you have any like a specific song that you've made or beat that you've made where if someone's like, "Yo," someone who has just discovered you recently, so hasn't heard everything that you've done so far, if they were like, "Yo, send me one of your favorites so I can kind of listen to this or hand it to the right person." Do you have a song in mind that like you made where it kind of stands, in your opinion, head and shoulders above the rest of what you've done?
Yeah, I have three. I could mention two.
Okay.
One is called "Everything Will Be Okay," featuring the lovely vocalist Liana, and I think that was I think that was the track like that really boosted my artistry. Not just artistry,
Mm,
but like people really love it, and
yeah,
I love it too. It still stands as a great song today, and yeah, and it's just a really nice, endearing song that
mm-hmm,
really resonated with me in that time when I created it with Liana. So
mm-hmm.
I think I think that's the track that people will relate to the most.
Got you. Excellent.
The other one is Spotlight from my Before and After Hours beat tape. And there's something special about that because I have this one my very first tape that I put out. It's called Hall of Mirrors. And the concept of that is like this is kind of my thesis as a hip hop producer in a way where I'm like, okay, let me get a single song, but five artists covered it. What if I sample those?
Ah,
And that's the
love
tape.
it.
So it's a single
Okay.
song, but it's made in five different ways from five different artists, and I sampled those five different artists to make that whole beat tape. And like
That's
my
really cool.
yeah, what I'm trying to say there is, if the guys who covered it can just get a song like that, why can't I sample it like that?
Mm-hmm.
Make it my
Mm-hmm.
own, just like what they did.
You know what's really cool about this is, for your fans and for people who listen to your music, one of the things that I really love, and I'm honored to sort of have the ability, have the platform to be able to do this, is to kind of show the people who know about you through your music, to show them a different side of you, right? A side where
Yeah, for
perhaps
sure.
some people who watch your stuff have not heard you talk about things. You know what I'm saying? Perhaps they know you for your main talent here, right? Which is music.
Yeah,
But I'm
definitely.
going to ask a couple of questions to kind of get to know you a little bit more, and I'll start off by asking for you to name a place that you've visited that you loved. Could be anywhere.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, I've just been around here in Manila, but what really sparked uh, my artistry is when I went to the U.S. So I went. So I went. I do have family in New York and in San Francisco.
Mm.
So my first stop
Okay.
was in San Francisco. So I stayed there for a bit, and there was this one street that like really hit me, and I was like, I do want to make a video. I do want to make a video showing like my best beat on this street.
Mm.
This is Maiden Lane on in the uh, city area,
Okay.
and that video, I mean, went semi-viral because Maiden Lane is a beautiful street, and it made me feel like this place inspires me.
Sure.
The
Sure.
other place is New York, and I think that's a bit self-explanatory because the East Coast hip hop is just great, and just
Where it
walking
originated.
walking around and listening to like really the hip hop greats while walking the streets, it's a different
Mm.
feeling.
I love that. How long ago was that visit?
That was like 2019, so before the
Okay.
pandemic. So yeah, that was pretty nice.
I live in New Jersey, and so when I share with people, especially people like yourself who live very very far from where I live, like I remember when I used to work at Verizon, a company over here. That was my first job before becoming a math teacher, and now before being sort of full time content creator and entrepreneur.
Cool.
Um, I remember meeting a lot of people at trainings and stuff like that. And when I told them that, oh, I live in New Jersey, they're like, oh, that's so cool. Like again, especially people that live in like Europe or like around the world, like, wow, that's so cool. You live so close to New York. Like
Yeah.
you must go there all the time. And I'm like, no, I don't. I've been there a handful of times, and it's so nice there. But I guess because you live so close to it, and I actually was born in New York, actually. So I have lived there before. But now it's like, it's a headache. It's like, oh, the traffic
Oh, yeah, I
and the
can imagine.
tolls and guard, all this type of stuff. But it is cool when people have a chance like yourself to visit. And that was your first time visiting the city? Or have you been
Yeah,
before?
New York.
Yeah.
I've been in San
So
Francisco
it's
a handful times. I say handful times, it's
okay.
like twice, but
Okay. Okay.
But New
I've
York, that
been
was the
there
first time. Yeah.
first time in New York. Okay. I've been to San Francisco once. My sister lives in Oakland right next to it. So we visited several years ago. And I remember like the downtown areas being really hilly, like a lot of hills and stuff like that. The street that you met, I don't remember any of the names of the streets. So I'm not sure if I saw that street or not. But I know like Full House, the sitcom, the show was filmed. I think that, or I don't know if it was filmed. I think it was filmed there, or at least the house that was on the intro is in the downtown area. So I remember we
Mm-hmm.
visited that, which was cool.
That's really cool.
I'm thinking about this too. I'm thinking about like I use this piece of gear here, right? I use the OP1. I use the OPZ.
Oh,
I have
damn.
Koala sampler.
That
A
that's
lot
a
of different
that,
things,
that's a dream. That's a dream equipment. That's a dream hardware for me right there.
bro. So let's talk about that. I'm so glad you mentioned that, right? So it's fascinating when I come across people. Maybe fascinating is a strong word. It's just very interesting to me when I come across people like yourself who are also, musicians, producers, and when it's only natural to expect that when you have one piece of gear or maybe two, but one main way of making music, then you're gonna be a lot better at that than if you had several different ways. The trade-off with that for me is like when you have several different ways, sometimes you can, feel more inspired to use this versus that versus that. And for me, I have like a thing where I believe, like I've had in the past, and now I'm kind of trimming it down, but I've had way too many different ways of making music, especially when I first got into the iPad. When I got into the iPad, man,
Oh,
there were,
with the koala sampler? Damn, dude.
yeah, well, Koala was one, and then there's like several other apps that, of course, I would try out to see like where my workflow kind of makes the most sense with. But now I'm starting to realize, like, I'm starting to strip things down a little bit. And I mean, your reaction to me holding up the OP1 is like I've barely scratched the surface of even, I'm starting to now understand how to use it and have fun with it, and like really just accepting it for what it is, and not saying, oh, I wish it had this, or I wish I can sequence this way and stuff. Rather just use what it has and know that it's been around for 10 years and that people love it. But it's younger or older brother or cousin or whatever you want to call it, the Z, like in terms of my workflow, this thing is probably my favorite way, one of if not my favorite ways to make music, because it's so smart and it just makes sense for me. 9 out of 10 people that own both of these are going to probably say, I mean, the OP1 is extremely more
Yeah,
popular
I'm actually
than the Z.
surprised. I'm actually surprised.
Right, exactly. It's not it's a different way, and I think a big part of that has to do with the fact that the OPZ is a sequencer and the OP1 has a sequencer, and I love being able to switch between sequencing primarily, but then also being able to record live, which you can do on the Z as well. There's things that you can do on there that just kind of blow my mind, actually, in terms of it's too much to even get into. But at a high level, one of the many things that makes it just like stand apart from the rest. I'll give you an example. The Z has 4 drum sample tracks, and then it has like 4 synth tracks, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm going ahead and getting a groove going on with the drum tracks, and then I have some bass, and I have some leads, and I have some chords going on, there's another track that's later on in there called the master track. And what the master track can do is you can sequence key changes, which means if I have like a regular basic 1 bar kind of loop going on, I can make that 1 bar loop an 8 bar loop on the master track, and every, say, 2 beats, or every however often I want, I can just press a key and it'll transpose any sounds that I want it to. And what that
damn,
basically
okay.
means is it's like a crazy thing. And you can also transpose drum sounds that are not necessarily changing the pitch, but it's transposing which key the drum sample is applied to.
Yeah, I
So
can go
you
crazy with that. Damn.
it's insane, bro.
Yeah,
You can see
that's
me get
insane.
excited talking about it. It's very, very much like something where it's like mind blowing. And so for me, when I talk to people like you, and I know you probably have a similar level of like passion and excitement about the gear, your gear of choice. My thought is, okay, let me focus in a little bit more on the stuff that I get hyped about, as opposed to trying to, I guess, figure out what is popular and then try to learn that and then use that to like create content. I used to kind of think through those lenses in the past, but now I'm kind of just like, I know what I love using. Let me focus in on that and create content around that. And people naturally are going to be like, if they see anyone doing anything that they're passionate about and they're skilled at, they're going to gravitate towards it no matter what it is. So that's my mindset now,
No, it's funny because the way I did have a phase where because okay, so the DAW that I use is a FL Studio, and right now I think I do a bulk of my music on that, with the help of the SP44, of course. But there was a time where I was like, you know what? What if I ditch the laptop? What if I ditch the software? And so I got 4.4, I got the 555, I got like 3 drum machines, and another sampler called the KO, the Teenage Engineering, yeah. And I was like, you know what? What if I try to make some stuff with just those? And I have a turntable, of course. Like, just rule out the laptop, the software, like totally just get records, start digging, do what Madlib did, do what Dilla did. And it worked out. And that really opened my mind on, I got all this gear. What can I do with it? what do I need, what do I don't need, and it really boiled down to the 404 and the 555. And I say both of those because you really unlock the potential of of those samplers when you have two of them. But because you can bounce the samples like between each other. Those are the only two pieces of equipment that you need, other than sounds, of course. Have one have one piece of equipment have like all the drums and all the samples and everything. Sample it into the other one, put that beat in the other one, and you can pretty much live loop it. Your whole set could be with just those two, and one you could play back, and the other one you could do effects. One you can keep the drums going, you can play the samples there, and like the limitations are gone. Which has kind of a it's kind of a drawback, to be honest. But if there's really something that you want to do outside of software, really the way to unlock the full potential of the 404 and 555, 303, 202 is to have two of them.
Wow. Now, was that something that I'm sure you didn't know that at like when you first got into it? That's something that you kind of said to yourself, huh, I wonder if I use it in this configuration, how this could result in that. And is that kind of how it went with you?
Well, not really, because well, there's this legendary producer named DiBiase, and he taught everyone how to use the 404. And what he said was like it's really best to have two of them to really unlock its full potential. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna get the 404. I'm gonna get the 555, which is pretty much like it's the same thing. And at first, I didn't really believe in like two 404. Why do you need two 404s? I mean, I get the limitation, but why? And then when I got the piece of gear and put them together, it really not only makes things easier, but makes things sound even more raw. So, yeah.
Interesting. You're mentioning something to be kind of similar. I have two iPads, and one of the frustrations, I guess we'll say, when I use Koala is that when I want to sample other sounds that are on my iPad in these different amazing high quality synths and drum machines and stuff on the iPad, there's not really like a elegant way to do that. You have to use a different app. You have to route. You have to do these different things. You have to be away from the Koala screen in order to import or do screen side by side, and it makes the screen smaller. So it's not really like a really good way to do it. So I thought to myself, like I have this iPad Pro, and I have a bigger one, and I have the iPad Mini there. So I made it's a little fingerprinty right now, but that just means I've been doing a lot of work on it. So I thought to myself, like, okay, in a similar fashion as you're mentioning, what if I had Koala sampler just staying on this iPad in a rig, and then I had the other iPad have like my different sounds in it that I can kind of go through, my different synths, I should say, and or drums and stuff like that I can go through and record into the pads on Koala. So as you're saying that, like basically connecting the two with just a USB-C to USB-C, there's something about it that's not working the way that I need it to. But I know that there's a way to do that. I'm like trying to sort of wrap my brain around it. Same thing with something like YouTube. Like instead of doing right now, in order to sample a sound on YouTube or Spotify or sample music on the iPad using Koala, you have to essentially do like a screen record of the YouTube video, and then you can import video into Koala, and it compresses it into audio, and it works fine. But for me, what if, what if I didn't want to go through those steps? What if I wanted to like have the two devices and one of them is playing YouTube, like my iPad Pro, for example, and I'm like, oh, this is a good part of the song, and I can just press and hold the pad and just get that little part like immediately. So for me, I'm thinking about things like that. I don't know how popular that is of a use case like for others, but for me, like I know that that would make things more inspiring. And I think that's what's really fun about this whole thing, this music journey is having an idea that you're like, oh, I think this might work better for me. Let me go ahead and experiment and try things out and kind of see what works best. And I would say too, Jeannie, is like there's so many talented people out there who are doing things that and they're sharing ideas and information with us as producers and as creators. But I've mentioned this many times on past conversations I've had, and it's like a very strong mindset that I have right now, which is to
Mm-hmm.
say, if you're watching a video on YouTube about how to do something that you're trying to learn how to do, a lot of these videos, a lot of people in the videos would kind of say, like, they would give their opinion, but it would be received or be expressed as something like factual. For example, like in order to do this, you have to like in order to grow on Instagram. Let's talk about that. That's a big search thing. In order to grow on
Yeah, that's a
Instagram,
giant
you know,
search thing.
it's huge, right? You have to, post this many times a day, post this many stories, look up this hashtag, comment on these people's videos, engage with them. You have to do all of these things. And certainly maybe that might be true, right? But I
To an
think
extent,
that
yeah.
to an extent, I think that a big piece of this whole thing is that you, me, and the next person, we're all different. We're all different people. So it's very important to note that like even things with the best DAW to use, like oh you have to use Ableton or you have to use FL Studio. Well, what if you think differently? What if you prefer one of the things that that person hates about one DAW? What if you love that? Like for me, for example, I don't like working horizontally when I make music. I like working vertically. I like doing things like looping and like getting a little groove going as opposed to like the linear sort of thing that most people prefer. And so for a
Yeah,
while I was trying to
the DAW workflow. Yeah.
the DAW workflow. I was trying to force myself in on that. And I'm like, no, like I'm gonna force myself into some. I'm not force myself. I'm gonna go into something the way that feels naturally and creative for me. You know?
No, it's funny because I always have people like ask me like, what equipment do you use? Because like if they don't know the 404, then I wouldn't blame them. But what equipment do you use, or what software do you use, or what program do you use? And I'm like, I could tell you, but it won't really make you a better musician. Like some people, I remember there's a very distant memory where I was in this club in my university, and I was like, and then the producers there, like I think, well, not really a producer. I think he was a sound engineer. He was like, "What do you use?" And I was like, "Oh, I use FL Studio." And then he's like, "Just move. You can move to Ableton. You're gonna have more possibilities there." And I'm like, maybe not. If I'm used to what I'm using, it works. If it doesn't work, then I would probably move. If I'm not happy with the sound, I would probably move. But FL Studio is a beast, so I'm gonna stick to that. I'm gonna stick to the 404. I'm gonna stick to the 555. It works for me. Um, some people don't really like understand that it's not the equipment, but it's the artist. And when it comes to the Koala app, I might have some hacks for you if you want to get some higher quality. So in Safari, if you go to a YouTube to MP3 converter, you can download it. You can download the audio, put it in your music files, and then put it in Koala. You can do everything in one device.
Oh, okay. So download a whole rather than do a screen share, you're saying download the music file in Safari on the iPad and just use the music file rather than having to let the whole thing play and do the screen share.
Yeah, and you can get an
Okay.
MP3.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Didn't
that's
think
a
about
hack for you.
that.
You can do
Yeah, yeah,
everything in
yeah.
one device.
Yeah. I didn't think about
Anyway,
that.
yeah, it's a good one. I had to find my way around it.
Yeah, for
Anyway,
sure.
so yeah, it's again, it's not the equipment, it's the artist. And what
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I love about. I like that you're using Koala because Koala does have its limitations too,
Mm-hmm.
and it's those limitations that really help us in improvising
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and like problem solving. Something
Mm-hmm.
that you wouldn't really have in a like in a usual DAW, in a usual software, because it could do everything.
Yeah. Right.
But what
Right.
if it couldn't, right? What if it couldn't? Then what are you gonna do? Are you
Mm-hmm.
just gonna be like, I can't make music on this? No, of course not, right?
You're gonna find a
You're
way
you're
and
gonna
be
find a way to,
resourceful.
yeah, exactly. You're gonna find a way to make music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right about the limitations, man. I think that for me personally, I know something that I struggle with is, whenever there's, and it sounds like you don't struggle with it at all. Like you're aware of this pitfall. But whenever there's something new, whether it's a new app or a new product, like I have to convince myself not to get it, right? Or not to like want it or something like that, right? And
Yeah,
a
for sure.
conversation that we've been having recently when I, held up the OP1 just now, and there's certain pieces of gear. I believe the SP series is also in the same category of like sort of iconic gear, right? Gear that people have used for many, many, many years, and they're built
They
well
always just work. Yeah.
and they always work. And these are the types of things. I was just having a talk with my some folks on a Patreon call that I'm a part of a couple days ago, and these are the types of pieces of equipment that kind of make more sense to own. Like for me, I'm not into like vintage, collecting gear or anything. Maybe eventually that might be something I think I would be potentially interesting in.
It's really
Interest
expensive though.
it's super expensive, but I heard like depending on what you're getting, like you could it's like it can be an investment. Like I was talking to
Yeah,
this guy
definitely.
who was talking like in decades. He said, yeah, this will be something I can hand off to my children, kind of thing. And but I was thinking about like how cool would it be? Like the OP1 is sitting there right now. I have one 10 years later since it was released. How cool would it be to like to still have this 10 years from now and still be using it 10 years? Like it's going to be a 20-year-old piece of equipment that is outdated by technology standpoints, but it's probably still going to be used quite regularly and stuff. I mean, there's no indication that it wouldn't be. So I love the fact that I'm getting this awareness, Jeannie, in terms of like, I deleted a lot of apps from my iPad and said, okay, I can get back to these maybe eventually if I need to be inspired or something. But for now, let me like focus in on learning and having fun with Koala. And then my second app, which is not as popular, but for the reasons that people don't use it are the reason that I love it. That vertical workflow that I mentioned to you, it's called Korg Gadget 2. Those are my two by far most used apps, music apps, and they're totally different apps, right? One of the is a sampler, and the other one's like a complete synth sequencer where you can play stuff and you can change sounds and stuff, and you can kind of start from scratch, right? You're starting
Yeah,
from
that's all
scratch
you
with the
need.
musical idea, and I love it, man. Like having that clarity now that I'm getting, and just getting back to having fun with the music, is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of having fun with music, there was a whole 2 year drought in my music career. Like there was a
Mm,
time I hated, like as a person outside of the musician, I kind of hated Genie because
wow,
like yeah, the creative block was so bad.
wow.
I mean, I just released my first single in like first solo single in like 2 years, and happy to
Mm-hmm.
be back, of course. But
Yeah.
um, all of it's fun because all of the material that you hear on Instagram, it's all backlog.
Mm-hmm.
It's all
Mm-hmm.
backlog. I have so much material that I haven't put out yet,
Wow.
and I just I just put it out on, well, not like officially, but at least people can like, go listen to it.
Can check it out. What would you say? I'm gonna ask you, let's say, one more question, and then we'll wrap up. So, what would you say, like, are one or some of your goals? If you and I are talking, and which I would love to have you on again, by the way, like a year from now or a couple of years from
Sure.
now, and we're chatting about things, and we're saying, reflecting on this conversation. What are some things that you want to accomplish, for yourself?
Accomplish. Well, of course, I'd like to express myself better
Okay.
because I've been making music for a pretty long time now.
Mm-hmm.
And in those many years, it's only now that I was able to bring my voice out on my records.
Mm.
And that's the kind of growth. That's the way forward. Just
Yeah.
more expression, more growth. And I've always told my Instagram followers, lots of people ask me like, what are you doing this for?
Mm.
And I tell them I want to inspire and I want to be inspired
Mm.
because
Yeah.
it's nothing. I can't really do it alone.
Yeah.
No one can really do it alone. So having a community really helps me move forward, like as a
Yeah.
person and as a musician. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish. Spreading the spreading the sound and spreading the positivity. Kind of
Yeah.
cliche. Spreading like being out there and having the idea that if someone sees what I do, they're gonna be like, I could do that too.
Mm.
And I love that. I love that. I want to see people have that, like be inspired like that. So
Mm. Well, I can say that's very, very powerful, a very, very powerful sentiment. And I'm sure that when people have a chance to watch this, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that hearing that when people who have been inspired by you in that very way hear you say that a big part, maybe the biggest part of what you do, is to inspire people. I think that's gonna really hit home when people hear you say that, right? Because I can say for sure, I know that you've inspired people. I know that a lot of
that's
people
really nice
who
to hear.
do absolutely, man. The people that are doing things that they love and are good at it, and are consistent with it, and are showing, just pouring into it, right? These are the things that stand out. Like when someone comes across your page for the first time, and I haven't even been following you for that long. I think it's been maybe a few months or something like that. I don't remember how, but probably came across your stuff maybe through one of the other Instagram accounts that I handle, like either the Koala Sampler one or probably the Koala Sampler one. Actually, I'm thinking right now, because I'm probably engaging your posts on there that I handle that account. But it's very powerful to have that sentiment, and I think it's going to absolutely hit home. So I'm excited to get this episode out so that people can kind of get a chance to know you a little bit better, from other than the musical side, but like the human side, right? What you're about, and things like that. So I just want to say I definitely appreciate you coming out, and if you got anything else to share, I would love for you to, like, some last words for anyone out there.
Um, well, all I can say is music isn't a competition. So
Ah,
that's why I'm that's why I'm here to inspire because I'm I don't want to like aside from like hip hop beef, music isn't really like whoever's better than the other. It's just, just make music, put
mm-hmm.
it out there. And as long as it's not like propaganda, then it's good.
Yeah,
Like inspire people. And
inspire,
it's nice to
express
hear
yourself.
that. And that's primarily the reason why I don't really release that much on major music platforms because that doesn't really matter to me as much as like on social media when people see your posts and be like, I could do that too. Because
Mm,
that's what social media can do versus like the music platform. The music
mm-hmm.
platform's made for listening.
Yeah,
Social media is a community and you're going to be able to like touch someone in the platform.
yeah.
So that's why I'm very heavy on Instagram. Or not just Instagram, just that good side of social media. That
That's that's it right there, man. A big piece of what I've been thinking about are I'm aware of the negative, bad sides of social media, and it's
definitely.
been in my
It's
face,
scary,
right?
dude.
Absolutely, man. Like you said, not the competition, but the comparing yourself to others, the amount of time it takes out of your day when you could be doing other things. just the distraction. There's like a whole bunch of those negative things. But then when I hear things like what you just said, like if you utilize it in a way that you're utilizing it for, right, to inspire people to express yourself creatively, if you use it like the way I'm using it for now, to network with people like yourself, to be able to connect with them and be able to now share this conversation with not only my people that know me, but also your people, build communities together, introduce each other to each other's communities. There's a lot of power in that. And so, just like mostly anything in life, there's good and bad that's associated with it, and it's up to us to kind of, go into these types of things with the right intent, as it clearly indicated by you that you're doing, and I'm learning to do. Right, I know you probably have similar challenges, just as every other creator that I mentioned that I've spoken to have had. But it's a work in progress, and I guess just being aware of it is probably the biggest piece to kind of resolving that.
Yeah, definitely. That's why it's very important to like know the people you talk to, because
Yeah,
they're just a bunch of haters, like on online, just in general.
for
But
sure.
you know, you're just gonna have to learn to not focus on them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you, of course, unless like it's a whole mass cancellation on Twitter or something, then that's something else. But yeah, most of the time, it's easier to focus on the good and not stress over the bad, the
Yeah,
haters, yeah,
that makes total sense,
stuff like
man.
that. Yeah,
That makes total sense. All right, so I'm gonna give you back the rest of your time, man. I just want to say again, thanks so much, man. This was a really insightful, as I expected it to be, and it was a very insightful conversation. I'm excited to have have you be a part of this platform, and I'm very excited to kind of see what you continue to do on your platform.
yeah. Thanks for having me. I This is like the first time I've ever been interviewed, so
Oh wow, awesome, man.
yeah, yeah,
That's good.
cool. Yeah,
That's cool.
I'm just low key, but
Sure, sure.
for stuff like this, I'm always down.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said yes to it. I'm glad we were able to get the schedules aligned. I mean, 12-hour difference is not always the easiest thing, but we found a way to make it work. I actually have a newborn upstairs, 3 weeks old, and so we're kind of traversing that new phase. My wife and I, that new phase of our lives, and
Congrats.
thank you, man. It's an absolute amazing blessing that I can't even begin to explain properly, except for the fact that people told me, like, until you get there, if you have children, until you have a child of your own, like, you're not going to understand it. And I see why people have said that, because I'm just staring at her like, yes sir, I'm just staring into her eyes like, wow, this is like, created from me. Like, this is crazy, this is wild. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I got you. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't got you, but I'm gonna get there eventually.
There you go. Hey, you're gonna get me.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you.
My man, thank you so much for the time. I'm going to let you go. Hope you have an awesome rest of your evening, and I'll be hitting you up soon to let you know when you can expect this on YouTube and on social media platforms. I'll hit you up on Insta with like a collab feature, type thing, and we can
Yeah,
kind
sure.
of share this to our communities, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Thanks for having me. Next time I'm gonna have better lighting.
Yeah.
Gonna
Okay,
have a
for
better
for ra-
camera. I'm
for
better
for
have a,
for round two, you'll have the
yeah.
better lighting.
I'm gonna get better rig. All
Awesome.
that
Well,
stuff.
or what we could have done, I could have just done this. I could have just turned my light down too to like both, so like it look, and then just like made the whole thing just like a darker mood, like it's on purpose.
Hey man, yeah, yeah. I
That's,
work on I work in the cave, dude. So
yeah, no,
I'm
I
just
hear
kidding.
you.
I have another lamp. It just broke. That's why I have
Oh, okay.
such terrible lighting.
Hey,
But
there's
yeah,
always there's always next time. That just gives us a reason to have to do it again.
true.
There you go. All right, man. Have a great one. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right.